Hey everybody, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I have a really cool surprise for you guys. I think you're going to really like this one. I'm doing a series, as you guys know, on taking isolated vocal tracks of some of the most epic, legendary pieces in all of rock and pop history. Next up is Def Leppard. The song is called Pour Some Sugar on Me. Of course, the vocalist is Elliott. But what I'm doing is, I'm not just doing a vocal tutorial and a vocal analysis, I'm also breaking down the recording process and the production that goes into this stuff, because I think that's really important. Now, let me explain myself, okay? I remember how discouraging it was growing up and going, man, my vocals sound like crap, or man, my guitar sounds like crap, or drums, and it just sounded small, like you're singing through a straw, and your guitar sounds really thin and tinny and harsh and whatnot. So I have opted to start with the original vocal demo of this song so we can put some flesh and blood on this and some humanity on it to see what it really sounded like in its infancy or its first beginning writing stages, all the way to the legendary epic piece that it became. Because it's important, when you guys hear Joe Elliott's original version and just the original scratch track or the original demo to what it metamorphosized into later, I think it's going to be surprising, and it gives us hope for all of us. Now, this is not to demean Joe Elliott. I'm not trying to do that. We all have our demos. I actually think I made better demos of my stuff when I have 40 records out, guys. You guys may or may not know that. And I remember making vocal demos that I think were a lot bigger production than this, just to get my ideas across. But I want to point out how much was the original track, the original song, and then how much epic it became because of its production value. So I'm going to start with not only just the vocal itself, but I'm going to include the instrumental first, and then I'm going to mute that, and then I'm going to bring in the vocal alone by itself, its isolated vocal. And then I'm also going to move on into the original vocals that we all know, right? I'm going to do the live version of that, and then I've got some more goodies along the way about the actual recording process. Now, I have a singing course. You guys know this. It's called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. For you guys interested in wanting to learn how to sing, you can find it right here at kentamplinvocalacademy.com, where I have a singing forum over there with over 20,000 people in there, all negotiating and talking about this stuff, okay? So without much further ado, I'm gonna rock this thing. Check it out.
Fill me up, something sweet, thrill to touch, enough to eat.
Okay, now right away you notice that the lyrics have changed, the melody's changed a little bit, and you can hear how basic the instrumental is. It's just a sequence bass with a little guitar. I mean, nothing special with this scratch vocal. But I think it's important to note, when we listen to this vocal, there's hope for you and me. And what I mean by that is, I'm not trying to diminish, Joe's amazingness, but I want you guys to identify from original instrumental, original demo, all the way to the massive epic that it became. Now let's listen just to his vocal alone. Check this out.
Fill me up, something sweet, thrill to touch, enough to eat. Do you take sugar? One lump or two? You take me, babe, I take you.
Now, I don't want to take away from how massive this song was and still is, okay? I don't want to take away from that. But let's be honest, you and me, right here, right now, we're intimate, just you and me together. If I came up to you and I said, you take one, and I take two, do you take sugar? One more for you. And then blood, right? And I'd sang that to you. Would you say, oh my gosh, that's a smash? No, you wouldn't, right? Now, the chorus is pretty memorable. It's epic, it's anthemic. I get that. We're going to get to that too. But I don't think you would think that that song was the smash that it became, but it's all of the goodies that came around it. Now, picking apart his vocal, he sounds like he may be singing through an SM57 or something, and it's a really, really small sound, and it doesn't sound that epic to me. Like I said, it gives us hope for our demos when we're making a demo, and we say to ourselves, what would this sound like if Mutt Lange came along and produced our music, right? Let's continue.
Do you take sugar? One lump for two. You take me, babe. I take you. So come on, take a bite.
Now, do you hear how strained that is? Take the fighter, bake it up. You know, it's really pinched and squeezed in the throat, but that's also his style. Now, I have done some Def Leppard stuff. I did photographs, some other stuff. I'll put that in the description. You can see how I did on my Def Leppard stuff. But I want to point out that from a vocal standpoint, he's really pinching and squeezing. And I've heard him actually warm up backstage at a Monsters of Rock festival where I was right next to his kind of kiosk-y kind of thing that they had. Their little trailers for everybody. They got to kind of do their thing as kind of their little green room because there were festivals are outside. And I got to hear him warm up. And it's, yeah. I mean, and that's literally his warm-up. He did that for about 15 minutes, and then he went out and sang, right? So it's important to know, but let's continue with this, and then I'll break into the actual real vocal, but check it out.
So come on, take a bite, shake it up, break the bubble, break it up.
Yeah, break it up. Let's listen to that line again. I'm sorry, but we got to check that out. Listen to this.
Break it up.
Right? Okay, now, come on, guys. This is Def Leppard. I'm not talking about somebody even trying to cover Def Leppard. I'm not talking a cover band. I'm talking, this is the original demo here, folks. This is what it sounded like at the very beginning. Holy cow. It went from that to what we know. Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, right? Let's continue. Here we go.
Who in the name of love? I can't get enough.
I'm hot, sticky sweet.
Come get it, get it. I'm hot, sticky sweet. From my head to my feet, yeah.
Right? Pretty interesting. Doesn't it give you hope for you and me for our demos? Let's continue. Here we go.
All right. Hi.
All right.
Ow.
Ow! You betcha. You know, he's got a lot of those in there.
Watch my lips. Watch me, woman. Take this man to the candy store. Hot shot of honey. Make it sweet. Pour your loving on me.
Right? Now, I get it. When we're doing a vocal demo, we just kind of, a lot of times when I was writing songs, and I've written, by the way, for you guys that don't know, I've got around 1,000 songs placed in film and television in addition to the 40 records I have out. So go to imdb.com, put in Ken Tamplin, you'll see the different TV shows from Baywatch to X-Files, Entertainment Tonight. I've done a lot of shows. I was a composer on a lot of shows. And so I wrote a lot of stuff. So what would happen is I would just kind of, yeah, you'll never live. I gotta go and get love. Yeah, get along, right? And I'll just kind of like mouth, vowels and stuff to kind of get the idea of the rhythm and the melody and stuff. So this is even farther along than that because this has actual lyrics to it where that's not even just the mouthing part of the original demo. It's pretty far along. Now, I could bore us all and go through the whole thing, but the whole thing sounds like this, okay? The whole entire thing sounds like this. Now, I want to back this up. And I want to go now to the actual vocals of the live version. Now, I couldn't get the actual studio version that was clean and worth listening to. So I was only able to get the live version, but it's really good because it's huge, right? And for you guys, you're going to notice, man, they're running a lot of tracks. They're using an outrageous amount of effects on the vocals and everything. But I think it's important because they ran a lot of tracks with their stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just the instrumental first so we can hear how big that is by comparison. Check it out. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's a half step down, and a lot of bands did that back in the day where they would tune down a half step so it was easier to sing. So not only were those verses already kind of lower, they're even lower still in the live version. But here we go, check it out.
Love is like a bomb, baby, come and get it on. Living like a lover with a red iPhone. Looking like a tramp, like a video van. Demolition woman, can I be your man?
Okay, so you see how absolutely massive that is. It's very, very, very far from the demo. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the top of this and I want to A, B between, and I know again this is going to be a half step down, so it's going to be a little awkward pitch-wise, but I want you to take a listen to this. When we go to the top of this section here, I want you to listen to the original vocal. We're going to go back here again. Here we go. Original vocal.
Something sweet, thrill to touch, enough to eat.
Yo, man. Razzle and a dazzle and a flash a little light. Television lover, baby, come on now.
Do you take sugar? One lump or two? You take me, babe.
Yeah! So come on, take a bite, shake it up, break the bubble, break it up.
Now, before we get on, too far along, so you can hear how much bigger everything is. Now, in fairness again, crappy equipment can only record things very mediocre, okay? So this is very, very important. So for everyone out there and they're buying $100 microphones and $200 preamps, you kind of really just get what you pay for. And I hate to say it that way, but it's really true. I have a lot of processing. I have very expensive gear that I like a lot, especially for vocals now, because that's what I do. So if you have a small 57 and a small preamp and not a very good compressor and not a very good A to D converter and then back again D to A converter, you're gonna get what you pay for, and you're gonna get this sound. You're gonna get this kind of tone here.
Oh, break the bubble, break it up.
Okay, so that's gonna be the sound.
Who in the name of love?
Come on and find me up. Oh, yo, sugar, I'm I can't get enough. I'm hot, sticky, sweet.
So that's what you're gonna get when you have a lot of processing gear. And ironically, that's a live version. The studio stuff has got much better gear and it's much more controlled environment. Now, as I promised, I was gonna do something really special for you guys. I wound up and I recorded the Pour Some Sugar on Me background vocals myself. Now, let me explain this before we go, because for you guys out there that wanna know how to do this, I'm gonna explain it, okay? All right, now my poor equipment has a little bit of a sticky button, so I apologize if I have to hit it a couple times. Bear with me because I want to get through this in one take without a bunch of edits. So if I mess with this, you'll know why. But anyway, so what I did was, typically, back in the day when I was learning how to do this, and I worked with all of these guys. I used to grow up in LA, so I got a chance to see how this was done and so forth. I recorded 20 tracks, you heard me right, 20 tracks of just the unison vocal. Now, I'm gonna play it for you, so we're gonna go do this now. I'm gonna play just the unison vocal. And why this is gonna be important is I want you to hear how this sounds with no effects. There's no effects at all, no reverbs, nothing. It's just this microphone, which by the way, I'm having my other M149, I'm having it tuned up. So I'm using a smaller diaphragm microphone. I'm not even using my normal big mic. But I just sat here and I sang it 20 times, okay? 20 times just to get this sound. Now, normally I probably would sing 30 or 40 times per voicing of a chord. In this case, this song only has a unison vocal, but I put a little bit of a third above it to kind of thicken it up, and then I also sang it down an octave, and I'm gonna explain that too in a minute. But anyway, I'm gonna play you my version, and before I do this again, I didn't just go, pour some sugar on me, you know, like that. I sang it like, pour some, and I got like a small timbre, pour some sugar on me, and I sang it in different timbres and different textures so that it didn't just sound like one guy singing, okay? Now, let me play it and then you take a listen to this. Check this out, if I can get this thing to work here. Pour some sugar on me! Pour some sugar on me! Pour your sugar on me! Okay, now that's what it sounded like, singing it 20 times, penning it kind of in a spread like this all the way around. So it's all, we get to hear the full spectrum. So it sounds like voices are kind of coming at you from every direction. Now I'm going to mute that and I'm going to show you the other voicing that I did, which is a third above. All right. Now I added this just to give a little flavor. I don't think they really added that in theirs, but it seemed like it thickened it up a little better for me. So I'm going to play that for you. And I sang this into it 20 times as well. Some sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. Pour your sugar on me. Okay, so now I'm going to add that to the track, but I'm going to tuck it back pretty far because I don't want it to really dominate. Now, some of the other things that they did, now I'm going to do this again. So this is going to be the octave below it that I put in. And you're going to hear, I sang it again in different timbres and different textures. Pour some sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. Pour your sugar on me. Okay, so there's the octave below, and I'm going to run that in the track just a little bit. And then I also did the octave of the third above it in the harmony part. So I'll play that for you here alone, so check it out. Pour some sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. Pour your sugar on me. Okay, now, they also use something called whisper vocals. So you guys out there that stayed with me all this time, hopefully this is going to be worth it. So by the way, so we're looking at this many voicing. The original track, okay, the original track, or original melody, right, the root melody, a third above, so that's 40 vocals alone. Then the octave below is another 20, that's 60, plus the third harmony of the octave above that, that's 80. That's 80 tracks of singing already. Then they add something called whisper tracks. So check this out. And what this is this is literally me going, pour some sugar on me, right? And I'm just using a lot of air and I'm doing it, pour some sugar on me. And I'm doing this 20 times in a different timbre. So check this out. There we go. Pour some sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. Pour your sugar on me. Okay, now that makes it sound like a gang of people singing, right? And what you do is you tuck this back into the mix and it just is a little bit of flavor, right? So I'm going to pull this back to where it was in the mix. Now, remember, we've not used any reverbs, and the kind of reverbs that they used in this track or on most of the Def Leppard stuff is they used a gated reverb. It's a long haul reverb that has a gate on it, a really heavy gate. So I'm going to add that to that right now, and I'm going to come over here to my gated reverb, and I'm going to start first with that, and then I'm going to add that to all of these tracks. So here we go. I'm going to put this all in here, and let's do this here. All the way to 16, and then we're gonna go to 21, 22, and we're gonna listen to what all of this sounds like with this gated reverb only, and then I'm gonna add a little delay because they had that too. So here this is, all the tracks, let me turn them all on, and you're gonna get to hear them in their full glory, all right? So, sorry, there's a lot of them, so I've gotta go through, and then let's see here, 21, 22. Okay, so check this out, here we go. This is what it sounds like with all of the tracks in. Some sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. Pour your sugar on me. Okay, pretty massive, right? Now they also had some delay that made it even bigger. So I want to be fair and I want to add that too because that's going to make that really kind of lush, sloshy kind of sound to it. So let's do it one more time with the delay in so we can check that out, how that sounds. And I think they even had another room reverb on it, but I'm not going to take the time to do that because you can also hear a room reverb that isn't cut off like a gate. So I think there's even one more reverb on it than that. But so let's come over here. I'm going to put all those back and then we're going to hear it like this. Here we go. Whoops, I thought I had a delay on that. Maybe I don't. Anyway, whatever. But there's a delay, okay? Trust me, the delay is going to make it more lush. I could have sworn I did this. Hold on one second. Maybe I didn't. Okay, I guess there's a room reverb on that. My bad. But anyway, okay, and then the next thing I want to do is I want to show you this compared to the original demo vocal. So let me mute. I'm going to mute all these tracks. I want to play you just the original demo vocal, which is fair, right? Here we go. Here's the original demo vocal. Check it out. All right, I back it up here, but right here. Here we go.
Take a bottle,
Turn it up a little bit.
shake it up, break the bubble.
Here comes my vocals.
Break it up.
Put some sugar on me.
In the name of love,
Put some sugar on me.
I can't get enough.
Put your sugar on me.
Come get it. I'm hot.
Now let me just try something for giggles. I'm gonna mute his vocal here, and I'm gonna add mine. And let me just go ahead and add some reverb, verb. So hang in there. I'm gonna put some effect on here, and I'll sing his part right here live. Here we go. I'm muting his. Here we go.
Put some sugar on me.
Ooh, in the name of love.
Put some sugar on me.
Come on, fire me up.
Put your sugar on me.
Ooh, I can't get enough. I'm hot, sticky, sweet, from my head to my feet, yeah. Okay, so there's that. Now let's add their track to it, which is kind of the cheesy, really thin track. And I do it one more time. Check it out. Well, let's back it up a little bit.
Put some sugar on me.
Ooh, in the name of love.
Put some sugar on me.
Come on, fire me up.
Put your sugar on me.
Can't get enough. I'm hot, sticky, sweet, from my head to my feet, yeah. Okay, now I think you guys can see where I'm going with this. We started out one more time. I think it's important to listen to this, where it went from this little tiny sound here. Let's mute all these big guys here. We started out with this.
Fill me up. It's something sweet, thrill to touch,
To this.
enough to eat.
Oh man, oh man. Rattling and dazzling, I flash a little light. Television lover, baby, go all night. Sometime, anytime, sugar me sweet. Little miss innocence, sugar me, yeah.
Right? Pretty far cry from the original vocal, the original demo, all the way to that. And I showed you the recording process in the interim, okay? Hopefully you guys like that. It was a pleasure showing you this guy's stuff. Hang in there, gang, because I have a lot more of these headed your way, and I'll be doing a lot more of this stuff to give you not just an analysis, not just a tutorial, but also the recording process and how the stuff is done. And again, it gives us hope for all of us to look at its infancy, its embryonic stages of from demo to mega, okay? Thank you for joining me, Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing, in the analyzing, in the tutorials, and in the recording. Thanks for joining me.